Hi, welcome on Speak Your Mind. I'm your host, Shami Lochanlal, and today we are going to talk to Nandini Vandana and Kalora Naliva from Ficac, Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption. So, Nandini, you are the Public Relations Officer with Ficac.
Yes, Shami.
Welcome on the Talkback
Thank
Show.
you.
And Kalora Naliva, you're the Manager Corruption Prevention. You
Yes.
work in the on the other side,
Yes.
where you look at the corruption side, so there's no corruption. Basically, prevention of corruption.
Yes.
Okay.
Education and prevention of corruption.
So just recently, Ficac did a roadshow, right? We're going to talk about that too. But just briefly, let us talk about Ficac's role. What is your mission, vision? What do you do? And then we'll proceed with other questions.
Thank you, Shami. The Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption was established in 2007, and we are we are an independent organization, and we acceded to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption in 2008. So we are guided by the principles of UNCEC, and again, the Commission is an independent organization, and their roles mainly for us is to actively investigate and prosecute corruption-related offenses in the public sector, as well as to educate and enlist support from the public sector and from other sectors in the country against the evils of corruption.
Okay. So you mentioned that Ficac was established in 2007. So does Ficac have a data to suggest or state the number of serious cases of bribery and corruption cases that your office has investigated against public officials since then?
Yes. So since 2007, and we started as a small organization, and 10 years into the existence, we've taken to court a total number of 224 cases, and which involve 364 accused persons. Now, this also included persons that have worked in the government, persons that have worked in the private sector, public servants, and members of the public who may have engaged in corruption-related offenses.
So which sector is mostly affected by corruption in Fiji?
While the Commission does not look at degrading or shaming a particular ministry or department because we are looking at public sector corruption, we have received complaints across the board in relation to numerous allegations that persons have put forward against the public sector in our country, not only the public sector as well as the private sector. So over the years, there's sort of been an awareness that has been created in the country, and people are becoming more aware of the issues that they can bring forward to Ficac. Now, what we look at doing in the next 5 years is producing research work and look at what are the 5 high-risk corrupt industries in the country. So that is how we are looking at.
Should it take you 5 more years to find out which are the most corrupt industries in Fiji, or do you have some fair idea as to which area is more affected by corruption in Fiji when it comes to public sector? And you may be working towards that too.
Yes. So at the moment, well, we do not particularly single out the sector that corruption might be more conducive to, but that is something we look at doing going into the next 5 years, and this would involve looking at a lot of things. What are the factors that contribute maybe to Ficac receiving a lot of complaints against a particular industry or so forth. So in the next 5 years, the country can expect the Commission producing research work, and this would be available for members of the public in a public space to view and see what are the high-risk industries.
So this you'll disclose this in 5 years' time, and not now. You're saying you won't single them out. So while we're talking about the most affected areas, public sector areas in Fiji in corruption, Ficac has identified these sectors. You know who they are. You may not want to mention, as you said, but has any work been done to bring improvements in that area? Has public noticed any improvement? Because the public sectors are definitely, they are servants to us, the public, the Fijians.
Yes.
And I think we should know who they are, or has there been any improvements made, any services towards it, which is then the public will come forward to help Ficac, I guess.
Thank you, Shami. That's where our proactive arm of the Commission comes in, which is basically the Corruption Prevention Department. Our major role in the department is to conduct education awareness sessions and different training workshops, not only to public organizations, government ministries and departments, private sector. We even go down to the level of community level awareness sessions, doing the awareness sessions in all the three languages. Through our education and prevention trainings, we have made changes to 16 different policy changes in 4 different sector organizations. So I believe from there, we can say that our training and our workshops have actually made changes to these different public sector organizations.
The most affected sectors in public, you mean to say?
Yes.
The organizations.
Yes.
So the reason to change policies was because these were most heavily corrupted areas, etc. What policy changes were made? Would you like to talk about it? To help these organizations?
Information management, resource management, gift-giving policies, declaration of assets and liabilities. In some organizations, through our anti-bribery training and workshops, they are adamant to take on board and implement anti-corruption policies in their organizations. So those are some of the areas that we've made changes in.
So since 2007 and now, this is 2017, we're coming to end now. Has there been any decrease or increase in such cases, in corruption and bribery cases? Because I know Ficac has been very proactive when it comes to educating and training people and creating awareness.
They can, for us, we look at it in 2 ways. We've seen that over the years, as much awareness as that we've brought to the members of the public and the different sectors and the stakeholders that are involved with the anti-corruption work in the country, when there is increased awareness and when the people are more informed about what areas are conducive to corruption or how corruption affects them in their day-to-day lives, they are more empowered and confident to bring those issues to the attention of Ficac. While some might not necessarily be corruption-related offenses, but these does sometimes pose to be loopholes for a corrupt activity to be occurring later in the future. So we acknowledge these matters, and we want to inform members of the public at this time that please, if you do suspect alleged corrupt activities, or you feel that you're in a space and there would be some wrongdoing happening, and you feel that this matter can be reported to Ficac,
and they can contact you.
Yes.
Good. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about Ficac's role and the number of corruption cases and bribery, etc. Please do call me on Speak Your Mind while Vandana and Kalora are here with me on Speak Your Mind. You may have some questions related to this particular subject with Ficac on corruption and bribery. My phone number is 3220906 or 3220907. You're on Speak Your Mind with me and my guests, Nandini Vandana, Public Relations Officer with Ficac, and Kalora Naliva, Manager Corruption Prevention with Ficac. So, like I said, you can call me on 3220906 or 3220907 if you have any questions in regards to the subject and the topic we're discussing today. Be part of this discussion. So, Vandana and Kalora, moving on, the former Education Minister was acquitted from the Magistrates Court in a case of corruption, right? But Ficac made an appeal against the judgment. What is Ficac's stand on this, and why the appeal?
Shami, I just wanted to put it at this point. The Commission, we do not discuss matters that are in court. Because this matter is now in court again, we would not be liable to be able to answer questions in regards to that.
But what was your stand on making an appeal?
I think when that would again be we have to await the decision of the court. And once a decision of the court is made on the appeal, I think we would be at a better position to be able to answer questions in relation to that.
So any other serious cases in which someone was acquitted by the court and appeal was made by Ficac to higher court, or is this the only one?
No, I think these are matters of court, and Ficac does make those necessarily legal judgments when it comes to certain matters. But however, we are not at liberty to discuss any of our court cases. We always leave it at the hands of the court, and when decisions from the court is made, we do send it by way of a press release.
What were most serious bribery or corruption cases where ruling was already made and matters are not in court case? What were these high-profile cases?
I'm sorry, I did not.
High-profile cases?
Yes.
Yeah, where the ruling was already made and the matter is not in court anymore. But would you want to highlight some high-profile cases?
I think, again, the cases that we take to court, once the decision is made from court, and I think we do send out press releases and media statements for that. The only reason why we do not discuss our court matters is because there are persons involved, and we do not want to cause any more shame or any more affect any more of the person's character.
But
So,
without
yes.
mentioning someone's name or the body in public sector, would you like to talk about the cases, the nature of cases?
While we may not discuss our court cases, however, for this year, two of the cases which have topped our list for the cases that we've taken to court, one is bribery and the other one is abuse of office. And I think, if Mr. Naliva will agree with me, bribery is one of the issues as well that we are trying to address in the country, because it is between two persons, and it's one of those complicated cases where it involves a large amount of time to be able to investigate and look at the evidence that are produced. So for this year, we had abuse of office and bribery, which topped
are
the
the top,
list.
yeah.
Yes, topped the list for the offences that we've taken to court.
So what happens? What kind of judgment is then passed, or what happens to these people? You have your own lawyers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have our own prosecution department. Well, basically, first, we have our own investigation department, and then we have our prosecution department. So once the charges are laid against the person by our investigation department, the prosecution department will take the case on in court. So what happened is a normal trial runs, and in the end, if the prosecution is able to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt, the court passes its judgment to say whether the person is found guilty or not guilty by the court. In the case where the person is found guilty by the court, I think the next step in process is the sentencing by the court. So when sentences are passed, that's where the accused person have to serve the time that's given down by the court, serve it as an imprisonment in prison.
So there is like no zero tolerance when it comes to bribery and corruption in public sectors.
Yes.
That's how fierce Ficac is when it comes to investigating matters.
Yes, we have a zero tolerance on public sector corruption.
Do you have that presence? Does Ficac have that presence of like, hey, we will not take it for granted, zero tolerance? We're very fierce when it comes to this. We want a healthy nation. I know you may not be able to eliminate, but in public sectors, do you have that presence when it comes to Ficac when they hear your name?
Yes, I think we've created that environment where we ourselves as an organization, we believe and we promote zero tolerance policy towards corruption. Even the organization itself, our policies and our procedures, it strictly reflects anti-corruption measures and preventative ways to...
And the results are in your favor?
Yes. And one of the things which we mentioned earlier was our presence in the public sector. So while we actively investigate and we prosecute corruption, we ensure that we are there creating that awareness, creating those policy changes to ensure that standard operating procedures of a government department or ministry is reflecting anti-corruption measures. So while we do the reactive approaches, we are also we've prioritized our prevention activities as well.
So since Fiji will be preparing for elections next year, what would be your stand on political parties or politicians making promises during the campaign in next year's elections? How would you divide manifesto against promises? How would you know that what is, bribery, corruption? What are you going to do?
Just putting it out there generally, when we talk about bribery, bribery is the exchange of whether it can be materialistic things. So, for example, you might give somebody a gift or a holiday package, or there can be exchange of monetary value, or promises can be made in order for you to get a favor from the other party. Now, just looking at Ficac, when we look at bribery offenses, so these are the things which constitutes. So if someone is making a promise to another party and expecting to get a favor in return, they could be liable to go through investigations, and then Ficac would ascertain, of course, after the investigations, whether there would be elements of corruption.
But during campaigns, when
Yes.
political parties do campaign for elections and to get more people on their side, they do make promises, or they talk about we'll do this, we'll do that. So where would you divide? How would we know that? How would we differentiate between the promise? How would we know that it could be a bribery? Would you explain further on that?
Okay. I think when coming to the elections, and I think the supervisor of elections, he has also spoken a lot about this as well. Now, what we would say as Ficac is for candidates, when the writ does come out and the campaigning period does start, for candidates to not make those promises to the voters, because we cannot be saying
This could be promises like I'll do this if you
would vote for me.
I think making promises in the first place it's not acceptable because people should be free to exercise their political
rights.
We'll take a break, and I'd like to talk more about this because there'll be a lot of political campaigns happening, and I think Ficac will be monitoring all these things too, because those will be like
Yes.
So we'll talk more about, and if it's your interest to be part of this very important discussion in my next segment, do call me on 3220906 and 3220907 on Gold FM. Speak your mind. You're on Speak Your Mind. So earlier we were talking about political campaigns by various political parties making promises and while during the campaigns. So would you say that manifesto would be different compared to promises? How would you differentiate that, just to be more clear on this?
I think when we talk about political campaigning and so forth, for Ficac, we would look at bribery. At the end of the day, if a political right of a voter has been influenced, then that would be something that Ficac would look into, because what we want is for candidates to campaign in a free and transparent way, and not to be at a position where they are directly influencing the vote by offering an advantage or offering a promise
What
to a voter.
about some political parties, if they pick a group of people, a particular political party, they pick a group of people in their own vehicles and take them to polling stations? Would that be bribery in any way?
I think that would be issues which would need people looking into. But I think, and the electoral office also looks into those matters as well. So we wouldn't be able to directly say whether that's bribery.
So what
or
would
not.
Ficac, will Ficac be involved in next year's election? What will be your role if you are involved in it?
I think Ficac, we've signed a memorandum of understanding with the Fijian Elections Office, and one of our roles would be to look into issues and also keep a track of the campaigning period, and if there are breaches and if there are acts of bribery or alleged corrupt offences occurring or activity, then Ficac would definitely be the institution that people should report those matters to.
Yeah. So generally when people do see any nature of corruption or bribery, how can they get in contact with Ficac?
To get in touch with Ficac, there is a toll-free line which is 1322. So if you're a Vodafone, Digicel or Inc user, you can call at any time. It is a 24-hour toll-free line. It is operational 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So, and you could call at any time. So if you feel comfortable at a particular time, you can call in and report those matters to Ficac.
How many calls do you get?
Well, the highest number of complaints we received is through this toll-free line. And I think it's because people find it a safe space from a safe and comfortable environment that they can call us and report those matters. It's also because we are located only in 3 locations, in Suva, Lambasa, and Lutoka. So the rest of the population, they find it really easy to call this line. And because it is free and accessible.
Where do you normally get calls from out of these 3 locations?
From Suva, Lutoka, and Lambasa, we have members of the public have the privilege of visiting our offices. But the rest of the calls, it's from those areas outside of Lutoka, outside of Suva, and outside of Lambasa.
So if someone does call to report bribery or corruption, what is the turnaround period? How soon are you able to get back to them or rectify the problem?
7 days. It takes Ficac 7 days to ascertain whether your complaint is corrupt in nature or not. So once you put in a complaint with Ficac, you receive a case ID number for you to always reference back and ask about an update. So 7 days, we inform you whether it is a corruption-related matter or not. If it is not, we inform you. If it is, and the complaints team, it comprises of legal officers as well who assess the matter. And then it moves on to investigations to see whether there was evidence of those alleged corrupt
I had a
elements.
caller during our break. Actually, she didn't want to come on air, but
Yes.
her question was that during Winston, when her house was blown away, damaged, she said that rural development had promised her that they will build her house, but they did not. While we were talking about promise, she wanted to know that when someone does promise that, just to clear her doubt, can she then take this matter up, or when natural disasters happen, nothing much can be done?
I would advise if she could call into our office, and so that we can look it into her grievances and complaint, or if she can lodge a complaint directly, in-person complaint, we will be happy to look into that.
Okay. So when it comes to complaining by general public, if someone
Yes.
wants to complain, what are some steps they need to take when it comes to reporting to corruption? Do I need to have some kind of valid paper or some witness? What do I need as backup?
It would depend on the type of complaint that you are bringing forth. But normally, if you have a complaint, if you prefer to walk in and lodge your complaint, you just come in, and complaint officers are readily available to assist you. So your complaint is taken down. It's registered into a case management system with your name and your contact details. But however, in instances where you want your identity to be protected, you do not want your name to be disclosed or your contact details to be disclosed, we can also do that, because in our laws, we have a provision that actually says protection of informers. So if they decide to call, well, that's readily available as well. But then it's just going ahead and lodging a complaint.
So while public do benefit at large with Ficac's presence, how has the public sector benefited with the establishment of Ficac over the years?
With the public sector, I think with the awareness that we are carrying out with them, and one of those things that we do is called a corruption impact assessment. Now, this means we are directly communicating with the executives of those particular institutions, and we are able to influence the policy change. So there are standard policies which public sector has, and if those policies have loopholes or those red flags which allow or which could allow for corruption offenses to be committed, we are able to go in beforehand and to be able to advise and to assist in the policy changes that are necessary for minimization of corrupt activities. So I think public sector has largely benefited from the advice and the assistance and the training that Ficac is providing.
Because basically we go through their policies and their processes, and then we, at the end of their training, we provide them with our recommendation, and the organization go back, and the onus is on them to implement and take on board those recommendations. And after a period of 6 months, we have also a monitoring and evaluation team that goes back to the organization to carry out their evaluation and see whether those recommendations have been taken on board and implemented, and how is it proceeding along.
Okay. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about reporting of bribery and unexplained wealth. What is unexplained wealth? And I'm sure that this is going to interest you. So do join me in the third segment soon after this break. And you can call me on 3220906 or 3220907 soon after the break to be part of this discussion with guests from Ficac. Welcome back on Speak Your Mind, and we're going to talk about, my guests are Nandini, Vandana from Ficac, and Kalora also from Ficac. Let's talk about reporting of bribery and unexplained wealth. So when you talk about unexplained wealth, these are suspicious money, right? Money which has not been submitted by public sector, or are we talking about private sector here when it comes to unexplained wealth?
Public.
Mostly public sector.
Yes. Though basically those the person that works for government and gets paid by government.
So explain more. What is unexplained wealth?
Okay. Basically, unexplained wealth is when the person's total wealth is greater than the value of the person's lawfully acquired wealth. So when we're talking about a person's total wealth, we are referring to the total value of your property, including services, benefits, at any advantage. That altogether constitute to your wealth.
This would be an employee of the public sector we're talking about, or
employee working in a government sector that's been paid by government. Yes. So basically, unexplained wealth, the law under our Prevention of Bribery Act and the Proceeds of Crime Act, it requires a person to show that the wealth that you've obtained was obtained lawfully, and it's there for you to keep it, rather than the law enforcement agency showing that that total wealth that you have, that you obtained, was obtained unlawfully, and then you'll have to forfeit it.
okay.
Yes.
So when you talk about obtaining unlawfully, what would that be?
When we talk about unexplained wealth, I believe, in my view, the concept of illicit enrichment comes in. If I have to give a simple example, if I'm taking up a position of an administration officer in a government department, I'm getting paid by the organization that I'm working for. So basically, my living standard should go together with the amount of salary that I'm being paid. So if after 3 months from now, if you see that I have took out a yacht, a multi-million yacht, so that questions your wealth. That's where the concept of unexplained wealth comes in. So if I'm able to, it makes it an offense if I'm not able to provide a satisfactory explanation in court. How did I go about getting that yacht? Because I'm just the administration officer and I'm sitting on a salary of 15,000, but then the yacht I got is $1 million yacht. So if I'm not able to provide a satisfactory explanation in court, I am committing an offense under the law for the offense of unexplained wealth. So what happens is my wealth can be restrained, and if the court grants the forfeiture order, assets are sold, and then the money is paid into the forfeited assets fund, which is controlled by the Ministry of Economy. But if I'm able to give a satisfactory explanation to the court how I went about to get that multi-million-dollar yacht, well, then it's up to the court to decide on my fate.
So does Ficac, your organization, have expertise to investigate unexplained wealth cases?
Yes. Our jurisdiction, we had received recent amendments to our law, and basically our jurisdiction have expanded So now we have the powers to prosecute and investigate money laundering offenses. But apart from that, in our Prevention of Bribery Act, we have a provision on unexplained property.
People have acquired money through bribery and hiding in overseas bank accounts. Do you have the powers of investigating the overseas bank account?
Yes, we've been given that expanded jurisdiction. Yes.
Has Ficac come across such cases?
Um,
when it comes to money laundering or people hiding money through bribery
on money
in
laundering
overseas bank,
offenses, we haven't had any case on money laundering. But if it does come along, we have the necessary powers to look into that.
So you have the
offense.
powers to seize and restrain that money if you find there is
Yes,
money.
because we've been given the powers under the Proceeds of Crimes Act as well.
But you haven't, no cases of such nature has been
So far,
reported.
not so far, none so far. We've just got that powers, I think, mid this year.
Yes.
Yes.
While you have a lot of people reporting on bribery and corruption cases, within public sectors, you say
Yes.
that within public sectors too there is, and people are reporting, plus public from outside. Have you had any cases of unexplained wealth in public sector already dealt with? Do people complain about that, or you have through your investigations found that this is happening?
Well, while we may not be able to discuss particular cases again and talk about details of investigations that we may or may not be conducting, however, this is something that we'd like to create awareness about. And if people do suspect, and I think that example which was given, where that's a lawful salary that you're receiving and your means of living is beyond the your
So then why
salary,
did
then you're
Ficac
able
see
to
the
be-
need to put this policy unexplained wealth when there was no such cases reported? I'm not saying that you go into depth explaining particular cases. You don't have to. But it means that there was some cases, unexplained wealth, which is why you have policies in place, right?
Because normally there's, I think it was, we found it useful to have that provision in our jurisdiction, in our law, because with corruption cases, there's always a thin line between corruption cases, money laundering cases, and unexplained wealth. So there's a high chances of in future we're going to receive cases of unexplained wealth and also money laundering. So that's why we've just like been proactive and just gone ahead and equipped ourselves with the necessary powers so that when the cases come along, we are there to prosecute our own cases on unexplained wealth and money laundering.
What challenges do you foresee with Ficac facing on unexplained wealth investigation?
I think one of the challenges would be firstly, and I think this is one of the major challenges, would be reporting it. Because we've certain times we feel that this is the way that it should be, or this is the way of living, and I've been living like this for such a long time, it becomes norm. You feel that there's a certain level of reluctancy to be able to report those matters to Ficac. And I know, and people have definitely brought this to our attention when we had conducted roadshows over the last 4 years. So that is one of the issues which constantly come to the attention of Ficac as well. So I know that there are people that would be particularly familiar with unexplained wealth. And the first things first, you have to be able to and be comfortable enough to come and report that matter to Ficac for Ficac to look into
All right.
it.
We'll talk more about this and how does Ficac work with banks when it comes to unexplained wealth in our next break. So do stay with me on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back on Speak Your Mind in our last segment with guests Nandini Vandana and Kalora Naliva from Ficac. We were talking about unexplained wealth. Do you have some training in place to go to public sectors and to educate people on unexplained wealth? Because it's new, I guess.
Thank you. Part of our anti-corruption training, the workshops that we carry out, we've always recommended to the to the organizations that we're doing training to that it is, as a proactive measure, it is good for the organization to implement something like declaration of assets and liabilities with all their officers in an organization, and have that reviewed annually, so that with that policy in place, you will be protecting yourself from getting in trouble and be prosecuted against possession of unexplained wealth, because you are actually declaring the assets that you possess under your name and the liabilities that you...
And since we're talking about unexplained wealth, and out of curiosity, there is a legislation on this, right, in Fiji on unexplained wealth, right? I think you did mention earlier. So has any person been investigated and taken to court?
I think because with unexplained wealth, the police and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, they also deal with unexplained wealth. Police is the investigating authority, and the prosecuting authority is the Office of the DPP. With us, Ficac, yes, we also have the powers to investigate and prosecute unexplained wealth offenses, and we will do it within, because we have our own investigation body and we have our own prosecution body internally at Ficac.
Okay, let's go back to bribery and corruption cases. Do you have powers to seize assets of suspects and restrain money in the bank accounts who are involved in serious bribery and corruption cases?
Yes. I think when matters of corruption related are brought to the attention of Ficac, then Ficac's jurisdiction and the investigation powers that Ficac had, it covers the areas that you have stated. Because in order to look at a crime holistically, we have to be able to look at all the aspects and all the avenues of revenue or gain or advantage that might have come your way. So, and those are aspects that we look at as well.
While Ficac monitors and has strict monitoring system in place when it comes to bribery and corruption in public sectors,
Yes.
would Ficac in future branch out to address corruption and bribery in private sector?
Yes, that's one of the things that we're looking at, and as of present, our prosecution powers does go to the private sector when there is collusion between public sector and the private sector. And what we've also started up with is a new project, and we'll look at this project being implemented next year, and it's called a Corporate Integrity Pledge. It is a pledge that is signed and a partnership between Ficac and corporate bodies in our country, and it enables for a relationship between the corporate organizations and Ficac. And what we want at the end of the day is for business houses in the country to practice business ethics in a fair, transparent, and accountable manner, and to be in direct liaison with Ficac, so we are able to assist whenever necessary.
It's a voluntary document that is signed by the private companies, and for the purposes of upholding anti-corruption principles. So there are benefits for private companies when they sign up with a Corporate Integrity Pledge, because it'll basically demonstrate to the company stakeholders out there that your business operations are free of hidden cost or corrupt activities. So the ethical reputation of your company, it would be a very good reputation, because you're upholding the anti-corruption principle when you're signing with the pledge.
So has Ficac come across any such cases where private bodies got engaged with public sectors where you saw bribery and corruption?
Yes. We've charged a number of personnel this year who were from the private sector. So this included business houses who would collude with private sector when it comes to the tender process and procurement processes and so forth. We've also charged private individuals when it came to accessing a particular permit or licenses from a government institution, and there was alleged bribery involved. So we've charged private personnel. We've also charged business houses who've colluded with public sector.
Was it very serious cases, or was it minor? How serious was it?
I think for us, any offense which is corruption related, is serious. We do not
the nature of
yes,
seriousness.
then it is serious offenses, because at the end of the day, it is going to affect everybody in the country, and we do not want it to have a ripple effect. We do not want the style of thinking where we say it involves a small amount of money and it doesn't matter. It does matter. So we have to be able to change mindsets and perception to say that we just say no to corruption. So we've been able to do that throughout this year, and not only this year, I think from last year as well, where private individuals have been charged.
So even a $10 bribe,
Yes.
that is still a offense.
Yes.
And the penalties would be same?
Yes.
Because we're trying to send out a strong message of deterrence out there.
Okay. You also had a roadshow recently on International and Anti-Corruption Day, a roadshow where you were able to reach out to people in rural areas
Yes.
and places where normally people are not able to go. What was the response from public?
The response was particularly good for us, and we acknowledge the people that came out in numbers to support the roadshow. We received a big reception on the day. We were at 32 locations around the country, and I think it gave people an opportunity to come and visit us personally, to interact with the officers, and for us as Ficac personnel, it gave us the opportunity to meet with the people, to see the surrounding in which they live in, what are the issues that affect them, what are the areas where corruption is conducive in those areas. So it was an event where we got to see how we live lives on two different sectors.
Yes, and which means that through this roadshow, after this roadshow, you'll have more people. I mean, engaging with public at large in 2018 will definitely have positive results. Now, if anyone wants, since it's school holidays time, to what are job opportunities at Ficac? Just to wrap up before we wrap up, let's talk about this.
We have research and advocacy officers career path here at the Commission. For research and advocacy, you basically go out and do education and awareness to the public sector organization and also government ministries and departments and even the community level, just to advocate and just to educate them about the evils of corruption and what you must do in order to get away from corruption.
So you have research and advocacy, you have got complaints officer, investigation. I've got a booklet here. It's very interesting. Legal officer, state council, people can apply for these jobs.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Kalora Naliva and Nandini Vandana, for coming on this show and for sharing some great insights with us and how Ficac operates. And your toll-free number is 1322. So if you have anything to do with bribery and corruption, if you see it happening in Fiji and public sectors, please do get in touch with Ficac. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I'll see you next week on Speak Your Mind.